In Belgium in 1989 and 90, it was a very different story. Here there was a UFO phenomenon that engaged the whole country to the highest level. Literally hundreds of separate sightings of a strange triangle of lights that moved slowly across the countryside were reported to the authorities. And this unidentified flying object was investigated by a number of experts.
At first sight, it is very strange. Because, for example, the technical characteristics of such flying objects are very different from what we know.
Professor Leon Brennig teaches at the Free University of Brussels and was one of those who looked closely at the phenomenon.
I saw a lot of first-hand witnesses, had direct access to at least 800 investigations which were carefully made. All these investigations indicate that there is really a phenomenon which is unusual. All the flying characteristics are highly strange. We have a lot of observations of such triangular platform which was hovering silently without any apparent action on the air above a farm during 20 minutes. Why above a farm? What does it mean?
One of the many witnesses at the time was Colonel André Armand, a civil engineering officer in the Belgian army. In December 1989, he was driving along this road at night when he saw 3 rectangular panels of light moving slowly across the sky.
I saw the yellow panels beyond the trees there, flying till the trees there, and the yellow panels change into a white light, and this white light was coming down to me. At this moment my wife told to me, André, come, we must go now. Because when you see such big light coming to you, that's very strange to see that. And my wife said to me, André, we are going away now. This light disappears, and I saw only 3 yellow, white, smaller lights, triangular. The center, the red light, pulsing, always pulsing. And this object was flying away very, very fast in this direction.
In the following months, there were many similar sightings of a strange triangle of lights not only in the countryside, but also hovering over the rooftops in the centre of Brussels. Marcel Alfarano, a shopkeeper, managed to capture it on his camcorder.
Ça s'est passé à 2h15, 2h20 du matin, la nuit du 30 ou 31.
It happened at about 2:20 in the morning on the night of the 31st of March. I took my camera and I went upstairs. It was at that moment that I saw in the distance 2 lights. They were bigger than car headlights and they were slowly coming towards me. They were moving very slowly, high above the rooftops there. And as they got closer, I could see there was a 3rd light behind the other 2. They stopped over there. I realized it was not a plane. It was something bizarre, something unrecognizable. Later, some people from the government phoned me and they say I should not get too carried away. They said I should say it was a plane I had filmed.
The Belgian Air Force decided that whatever the UFO was, it could not be ignored.
In 89, 90 we had a lot of observation from the ground, a lot of people seeing strange things in the air. and the Belgian Air Force already scrambled 2 times F-16 to observe what the people saw from the ground.
Wilfred de Brouwer, a colonel at the time, was officer in charge of operations.
Some people saw very strange objects in the air with a very peculiar behavior. They called the police. The police confirmed the observation. They called the radar station of Glon, and Glon confirmed that they saw a blip in the area. And that was also confirmed by another radar station, which is about 100 miles away. Based on that, they asked to send these 2 aircraft in the air.
So that night we had a scramble with 2 F-16. I was one of the 2 pilots, so I was leading the pair for that mission. We had a lot of information coming from the ground, and those people could basically inform us about the exact position of the, I would say, the UFO.
Ground radar observed a blip which was moving very fast from an area south of Brussels towards the east. The aircraft were in the near vicinity and of course tried to detect that particular object, and the 2 aircraft confirmed that they had a lock-on which showed the speed of 700 knots, around 700 knots.
The F-16s had repeated locks onto the UFO, but as they closed in, it changed direction and speed with extraordinary maneuverability. The pilots had no doubt that the target was real.
We had a different radar contact on the target, so it happens at least 3-4 times, where we could acquire a radar lock-on with the F-16, and we knew that at least 1 or 2 times we had exactly the same contact as the one which was on the screen on the ground. It was accelerating very fast, so it was going from 50 knots to more than 1,000 knots. It was really climbing and descending very fast, and it was changing heading abruptly. And most of the time it was even flying supersonic.
The Air Force never did make direct visual contact with the UFO. Exactly what the target was remained a mystery.
I don't think it could have been experimental aircraft. First of all, we always look to the United States. They could have been doing experiments here. I don't see why they should be doing it in Belgium in the first place. Secondly, they confirmed officially that it was not them. We had an official declaration of the ambassador here. And thirdly, the performance of this system was such that it could not be related even to an experimental technology.
It was not a prototype, and I don't really believe it was a meteorological phenomena at that moment.
There's not much left, and well, one could refer to an extraterrestrial observation or vehicle, if you want. And I think that's an option which, or an assumption which should not be excluded. I'm not saying that it was an extraterrestrial, but it is an assumption that should not be excluded.
The radar tape from one of the F-16s was sent for detailed examination by experts at the Center for the Study of Electronic Warfare. The radar specialist who advised the investigating team there was Professor Emil Schweitzer, a distinguished physicist who teaches at the country's elite military academy. What did he make of the strange unidentified craft that the Belgian Air Force tried to intercept?
That UFO could make right turns, which is impossible by our laws of mechanics, and that UFO could also change very suddenly the velocity, which is also impossible, but because it would give an infinite acceleration.
Is it possible that the Air Force's unseen UFO was nothing more than a technical aberration in the radar equipment?
I don't think that you can explain it by saying that all radars made the same mistake. That's highly unlikely. There are different types of radar, there are different types of antennas, and also the orientation of the target was different for the four radars. I'm going to be fired by my colleagues, but I think that extraterrestrial intelligence is very highly likely.